The Wellington Phoenix had a good win on the central coast of Australia up against the Mariners. We had I don't know, there seems to be just a lot of crazy sporting stuff happening because older Shige scored a banger. There was a bicycle kick banger in another A-League game. We've just got amazing Kiwi sporting moments just happening everywhere. Who else scored goals? We had Costa Barbarouses scoring a goal, and we had Sam Sutton scoring a goal. So the Wellington Phoenix won that game 3-0. Wellington Phoenix are now fourth in the A-League. They are one spot behind Auckland FC, who had a bye. And do you get points for a bye in the A-League or no points for a
Nah.
bye? Righto. So it's good to bit of bye variety because in the NRL you get points in the bag and it kind of messes up the whole ladder. A-League no points, so just got to adjust the mind frame to how the A-League operates. That's why Auckland FC have dropped to third because they had a bye, didn't get any points. What I do like is we talked about this last week. Auckland FC best defense in the A-League, which I reckon is all Alex Paulson, and then you build a good defense from there. Wellington Phoenix, though, they've only conceded 3 goals, 2 of which were against Auckland FC. And Wellington Phoenix are fourth. The 3 teams ahead of them are the only teams who have conceded 3 or less goals. Every other A-League team has conceded 4 or more goals. So the Wellington Phoenix defense, that's pretty good as well. So shout out to the Wellington Phoenix. It seemed like this was just a more free performance from the Wellington Phoenix. They weren't restricted by the Cape Town Derby atmosphere and the buzz and the hype and the pressure of doing that at home against Auckland FC in the first Derby. I did draw the comparison to the Kiwis, the young Kiwis playing at Mount Smart against Tonga, young Wellington Phoenix team playing in their first Derby. Auckland FC were better equipped for that environment, for that atmosphere. Then the Wellington Phoenix, they just go to Central Coast, they just go to Australia. The Mariners don't seem to be too good this year because they're down in 10th and they haven't won a game. But it seems like, okay, the shackles are off for the Wellington Phoenix. They can just go out there and have fun. It seemed like a bit of a different vibe, but did you notice any kind of shift in how the Wellington Phoenix played that game against the Mariners?
Well, speaking of teams conceding 4 or more goals, Ollie Sale's Perth Glory have conceded 4 or more goals in 2 different games this season, let alone across the whole season. So
I am the
he's
goalkeeper
looking.
whisperer. I am the goalkeeper whisperer. I predict
Yep,
these teams,
yep.
you know.
That one's coming. That one's coming fairly true there. I pondered quite a bit in the All Whites, in my All White squad breakdown about at what point does Ollie Sale lose his third choice goalkeeper spot in the All Whites, and Case/Keen Sims, one of the 2 of them, swoops in. When you think about him having played now, because he played the last 2 games of the season because their normal keeper got sent off at Gaius, so he had a nice little mini run there. 8 games in the top division of Sweden for a team that finished 6th is far and away a higher level than the A-League or Max Crocombe in England League Ones. I know he's not playing a whole lot, but he is kind of the keeper at the best level. And Ollie Sale doesn't look like a happy chappy these days. He is screaming at those defenders multiple times per game. Although one of those goals in that game was directly his fault because he came out of his box, had a bad clearance straight to a striker who slapped it past him. So
Shout out Ollie Sale. I don't want to be too down on him. He's trucking along, and to be honest, by the sounds of it, it sounds like his team just sucks. It doesn't necessarily sound like Ollie Sale
it's
sucks.
not. Yeah,
but I think that you do raise an interesting point. Goalkeeper is probably the deepest position for the All Whites. And if you're not playing at a high level, in Aotearoa football, men and women, to be honest, there's another goalie who is keen to take your spot. And that is what I like about Aotearoa football, is that depth. And if you're in a struggling A-League team, I don't know if you're going to crack the top squads anymore, and that's the baseline. That's the benchmark that has been set. However, I did ask you about the Wellington Phoenix. So I'm not sure how we got to Ollie Sale. He did play for the Phoenix, so shout out to them and that connection. For the Wellington Phoenix, what was the most notable change you saw from the Derby game against Auckland FC, then going away to the Mariners, aside from my quirky observation about maybe the shackles were off and they didn't feel the pressure as much?
Well, I think it's more than a quirky observation, because if you look at their record so far, they've played a home game against Western United, which they drew 1-1. They went away to Perth and won 2-0 against Ollie Sale. They were home against Auckland FC and lost 2-0. They went away to Central Coast Mariners, defending champions, beat them 3-0 on their own pitch. So in their home games, they've had a draw and a loss. In their away games, they've had 2 clean sheet victories, scoring 5 goals, scoring 1 goal in 2 games at home. So there might be something in that developing where when they've been away and sort of expected to be a little bit more in the underdog mold, conditions against them maybe more so, they've actually produced comfortably their 2 best performances. But also it's early days, so it's a little bit hard to compare that, because I think there's something about the Central Coast Mariners game that is different to all the other 3. And the other previous away win was against Perth, and we've established they kind of suck right now. And like 2-0 away to Perth, not even Perth's second worst loss of the season, and they've only played 4 games. So, that's actually one of Perth's better performances. So I don't know if the Phoenix even come away with that much, reflected glory or anything. It was just a solid win on the road is all that was. Beating Central Coast 3-0 away is different, though. That goes beyond a solid win on the road. That is one of their better results for a couple of years during regular season. During regular seasons and playoffs, because they haven't actually really won a playoff game for quite a while. So, and like the caveat is that Central Coast Mariners have not had a good start to the season. They didn't have a good start to the season last year either, though, where I think they lost their first 4 games in a row. So they've actually been better this time than last time. Central Coast Mariners' previous result was a 0-0 draw against Perth Glory, so Ollie Sale did keep a clean sheet on that occasion, but if they didn't score past Perth, they didn't score past the Phoenix. So Central Coast is similar to the Phoenix in that, in fact, they're an example that mentioned a few times as being sort of like, well, we can do this because Central Coast do that. That being the focus on really boosting their own academy and developing players internally. And Central Coast have that same model where they bring through a bunch of players each season. They sell the best couple of them. One of them, from one of the key players from the last couple of championships, has been Max Ballard, who's now starting central defensive midfielder in the Eredivisie in Netherlands, where he's a teammate of Matthew Garbett, which is an interesting little wrinkle to this conversation. But yeah, suffice to say that Central Coast Mariners did this last year as well, where it was a slow start, where they'd lost a few players, they had to reconfigure a few things, and this is not a bad time to play them. Wellington Phoenix have done the same, though. I don't think you can hold that against the Mariners in terms of this particular matchup, because the Phoenix don't have Alex Paulson, don't have Ben Holt, don't have Finn Sermon, don't have half of their imports from last season. They've recalibrated a whole lot as well. And this game, for the first time, I think we saw the vision. I think the first 3 games, it was a bit more. There's a couple of players injured. It's not quite it's not quite the stuff that Italiano had been teasing throughout preseason about. We've been working on these things. We've got a new style of play. Like, I spent the first 3 weeks wondering, okay, but you said you want to build around Marco Rojas, and I don't really see where Marco Rojas fits into this back and the way they were playing. I think the fact that Rojas wasn't playing was part of why they were playing that back 3, though I think now we can probably say that a bit more clearly, is that they adjusted because they had some guys out injured, so they played in a different way. And now here you saw them go to a back 4. You saw them playing in more of a sort of 4-3-3, defending 4-5-1 kind of setup, where it's a little bit curious because you had Matt Sheridan playing as a right winger, but also expected to get back and double up with Tim Paine. Is almost like having 2 right fullbacks. I think they really wanted to to ensure that Central Coast weren't able to get anything going down that wing. And so it was a bit imbalanced. I think that part of it is more so just adapting to the opponent, but you can also see how this style of play just immediately made them look more fluid, and the fluidity was the major theme of preseason. All these players that they're signing who can play in multiple positions. Italiano's been telling this, like, guys are expected to play multiple positions during the game. Different situations, a midfielder might have to act like a right back, might have to act like a left winger, might have to act like a striker, whatever. Like, these guys are expected to have to be adaptable like that. And for the first time in these 4 games against Central Coast Mariners, I think we really, like I say, we saw the vision. We started to see the ways in which that might manifest on a footy pitch, where I think a major factor was Paulo Retre being available. He goes straight into the starting lineup and had a pretty big presence out there. Hideki Ashige was unreal. He scored that superb free kick. He also set up the other 2 goals. Like, he got the assist for Barbarossa's goal. He got the assist for Sam Sutton's goal. So a pretty spectacular day of production from that fellow. And you can see how he was roaming around and really linking things up. And Nagasawa, I think, had a strong game. And you got Alex Rufer kind of base of the midfield locking things up. I think an undercover hero of I should mention as well, Josh Oluwayemi, much better game from after, bouncing back after the shocker mistake. It was really just that one mistake, but it's still, that's the kind of thing late in a derby game where you cost your team a point, send them on to defeat. That's a dangerous one for the old mentality, and he showed plenty of character to produce a clean sheet performance. I think he made 11 saves in this game. Didn't really feel like there were any amazing, crazy ones that they had to make. I think Central Coast unleashed a few long shots that he dealt with comfortably. But what were you going to say something?
So I think it might have been Sunday. So it was a busy Sunday, lots of rugby league.
Yeah, extremely busy Sunday.
But I tuned in after, so I kind of set you up with the change of the Wellington Phoenix because I watched Chiefy's interview after the game and he referenced the change in formation. But then also they were going through like their, how you get like your Dream 11 top performers or whatever the crack. And it's like, well, who cares? I can see who the best player was. I don't need you to like tell me your point scoring measurement for the best player. Same thing for this game, and Oluwayemi was the best player on the field, and like the commentator straight away said like, well, he had a lot of saves, but the shots were pretty much straight at him. So but as you alluded to, it is a good bounce back performance from Oluwayemi, and like that's all you need him to do. Just make the saves, make the passes that need to be made. Do you think it's easier for him to play out from the back with a back 4? Like if they have like a if they have like a designated game where they're like, okay, we're going to play with the back 4 this time, is it easier for a goalie to play out from the back with that formation as opposed to the back 3?
It is a good question, and I think it probably depends on your midfield and how deep you want those guys to play, because if you're trying to just get the ball forward, you kind of want the 2 other midfielders, not Rufer, but the 2 more advanced ones, you kind of want them up there in support of your wingers and your strikers. So, but if you're trying to build up from the back, you expect things to happen a little bit more slowly but deliberately, and therefore those guys can drop in and be options, because you'd normally see like the centre backs will peel either side of the goalkeeper, so you're almost like in a 3 with the goalkeeper being the middle third, and maybe a midfielder drops in to collect through the centre, and then that guy's, there's a bit of pressure on that pass. That guy has to be very strong on the ball, has to be able to take it on the half turn, or know where the pressure's coming from. Alex Roof is really good at that, though, so that's not really a problem. And then you start to get your fullbacks involved. He does like his fullbacks to get a little bit inverted in certain situations, so that's also part of it. We'll see. It was a weird one there, because I yeah, I looked at the SofaScore stats, and so because SofaScore does that same thing as one of the many apps that do the like, let's come up with a way of ranking these guys out of 10, and they gave him a 9.4 best player on the park, despite like, yeah, 10 saves, it was 5 from inside the box, couple high claims. It's like there's nothing else in any of these stats. So I think they've only looked at he made a lot of saves, therefore he played fantastically. But his passing stats are really funny because you've got 12 out of 12 short passes. So I think short passes or medium passes, counting both in the same category, I think that's anything under less than like 20 meters. So a long pass doesn't necessarily mean kicking forward, could mean to switch a play. Sometimes it's even center back to center back if they're spread out enough. But 12 out of 12 for the shorter medium passes and 0 out of 13 for long passes.
Yeah, good stuff.
So none of the long ones actually found their target. Or maybe, I mean, to be fair, Hideki Ishige, Costa Barbarossa's at front, Matt Sheridan as well. Like, these aren't big dudes. So if you're going long and expecting them to win headers, it might not be. It might just be long passes along the ground. I don't know. But if that's the case, they're probably not going to win many of those headers. That's not really how they play. But yeah, there's a little bit of contrast there between just between the two different varieties of Oluwayemi passes there.
Barbarouses and Ishige might not be the biggest dudes, but the thing about football, the long ball is as good as the rebound. Right, like the long ball is as good as the
first phase, second phase, you know?
And it's like, yeah, sure, some dude can win a header, but I don't, like, footballers aren't putting a header to one of their teammates 100% of the time. It feels more like, when I watch football, it feels more like 50-50. And if that's the situation, like, you're just putting it up in the mixer, sure, they win the header, sure, it's a... Like, Oluwayemi's not getting credited for an accurate pass, but you can always win the next phase. And if you're doing that up the field, pass, now you're in behind, and you can create a chance. What you're saying about the inverted kind of wing back. So we've got Sam Sutton on the left, and we got T Paine on the right. Sam Sutton is awesome. I don't really have any negative.
Agreed.
Anything negative to say about Sam Sutton. The cool thing about what those players do, yeah, there is that inversion. So they do get infield, they do join the midfield. However, they just love to boost it up the sideline. And they both do it. So there is, not only do you have variety in how they progress up the field, whether it's staying wide or coming infield, but they both love to get up the field. So you might have Sam Sutton boosting it up the left flank on one play. Next play, you got T Paine boosting it up on the right flank. And I think that is a very useful skill set to have. Who's the left back for Auckland FC? That's Franny de Vries.
That's
I love
the one.
Who's the right back? Who's the captain for Auckland FC?
Hiroki
Sakai. It feels like Auckland FC, it feels more like Franny de Vries just chills out a bit more at left back. And then Sakai bursts forward. Sam Sutton's faster than de Vries. He's more agile, he's more nimble, and he's got a greater attacking skill set, I believe, than de Vries. So just comparing them, not saying one's better than the other, but the Wellington Phoenix, they've got two dudes on either flank who are going to get right upfield. And they can get infield, because Sam Sutton's goal came with him dribbling infield from his left wing. So I think it's something to watch out for.
Yeah, you had I think Costa Barbarossa sort of drops in and does like a little 1-2 thing with Ishige, both of them drifting out to the left. And because they drift out to the left, Barbarossa actually does like a wraparound run. It's almost, is like
second man play.
Yes, second man play stuff. Yeah, and because they both peel left, Sutton cuts inside. So there's a really nice, it's a beautiful goal. And Sutton takes it really nicely with a little dink over the keeper. But the way they created that chance from having their two furthest forward players and their left back, just the movement and the sort of interaction between them was really awesome. Like, it was a fantastic goal.
Yeah, I'd say that's something to watch out for with the Phoenix, because it's like, yeah, sure, okay, you got to watch out for Tim Paine on the right. Okay, you're watching out for Tim Paine on the right, and then suddenly Sam Sutton's bursting forward on the left, and that kind of, and you've got Alex Rufer, who I think's the best player in the A-League. You've got him, and my favorite thing about Alex Rufer, aside from really rugged midfield mahi with a splash of razzle dazzle, my favorite thing about Alex Rufer is he gets the ball from the middle out wide. So whether the ball comes to him from the right and then he passes out to the left, or if the ball comes to him from the left and he's passing out right, maybe the ball comes to him from a central position, then he just distributes it wide. He is really good at passing into the wide channels, which, as I'm talking through this, is a complementary skill set for Sam Sutton on the left, T Paine on the right. So there's a couple of things I like there with the Wellington Phoenix. I also had a chuckle about Annalie Longo's dog on the field at the great Porirua Park. Easily the best football stadium. Yeah, I'll say best football stadium in Aotearoa, because you get a bit more quirky antics compared to Mount Smart. Like, Mount Smart is a full-on stadium, but Porirua Park, whenever I watch a game at Porirua Park, whether it was the motorcycles doing burnouts last year, dog on the field this year, like, I just love Porirua Park. I reckon the Phoenix should play a lot more games at Porirua Park. Aside from your expertise with dogs on the field from your National League coverage, yes, it's funny. Yes, it's like cute and cool and all that stuff. But for our discussion, the Wellington Phoenix lost that game. They lost that game 1-0. And they are now 0-2 to start the season. They have conceded 5 goals. They have scored 2 goals. And they are one of... Sydney FC is the only other team with an 0-2 record so far. I like what the Phoenix do. Like, it's still, to me, it's still a bit helter skelter watching them play football, because it's like their intention is to make the most difficult pass possible. So, like, in theory, it looks like they're trying to make the easiest pass possible, because it's like they're trying to make a small pass into space, but the way they do it makes it a really difficult pass. Like, they're trying to do like one-timers into space. They're trying to backheel to an overlapping runner. And it's like, I understand the game plan of Paul Temple. We got this small ball idea, whatever. I think if they just took like a fraction more care on the ball, they would be dominating teams. Because their concepts of getting into space and passing into space and like attacking movements are so defined and well coached that their lack of care passing the ball does them a disservice. Like, it's literally just like, take a moment and make sure your pass is going to your teammate. Take a moment to get your head up and actually look to the other side of the field when one of your teammates is in acres of space, and give them the ball instead of going back to your centre back or making a really difficult pass into the midfield. I think it's just a little bit more care, and they would be a very good A-League team. But we've now had a season and a bit of this kind of football where every motion just becomes a turnover, and then you're playing tennis. You're just going back and forward, and it's a bit helter-skelter, a bit frantic. And the reason I'm like, they're doing themselves a disservice is because they create really good chances when they do connect with their passes. Emma Main had a few good shots. Zoe McMeekin's, to me, she's the epitome of Wellington Phoenix women's football, because she's everywhere on the field. She's so skillful. To be honest, she's audacious with the football. Like, she has no issues doing any razzle dazzle. Like, she's going to do razzle dazzle whether you like it or not, and it's really fun to watch. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes she ends up out of position. Sometimes there's a hole at right back, and it's like it kind of breaks down. But I do like what she's doing, like what Emma Main's doing, and then we got the centre backs, Mackenzie Barry and Rebecca Lake, who are just like two gritty Kiwi centre backs that set the tone. Like this is the results aren't there, and I can see the, like you were saying about Chiefy, I can see the vision, I can see what they're working towards. I'm going to be curious if they can kind of click into a more ruthless type of attacking movement. Because it's, okay, here's a way to frame it. You got Annalie Longo, she's like what I want the team to be. She's got control on the ball. Every pass is deliberate. It's accurate. It's on time. It sets up the next play. Then you get into like a McMeekin, Alyssa Wynnum territory where it's like if the passes get a bit more 50-50. And I don't think they've got like the clinical strikers as Canberra did. They had the veteran, I'm not sure of her name.
Yeah, Michelle Heyman.
Like the Phoenix don't have that type of striker to just make sure every chance is finished. So they do need to kind of set up better chances. But it's this, what am I trying to say? It's like a balance between, I can see the weakness, I can see the flaws in what they're doing. But I still think like the foundations are being established, and I'm optimistic that they can build on these foundations quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and I tend to agree with that. Where it's, in fact, I would take it further and say I don't know that it's even a small ball thing necessarily. I think it's just in general, they don't make enough good decisions on the ball. And whether you're trying to play small or whether you're trying to go against the grain, I think there's just a few too many times where it's like, maybe it's a lack of awareness on the options around or whatever it is. I think maybe they just, yeah, a little more care on the ball, like you say, or a little bit more just slightly more deliberate with how things go. But I mean, frankly, as cool as the small ball idea is, and I think it really does suit them, and you can see how they're working towards it in terms of what we actually saw last season, not in terms of how much it was spoken about, but in terms of what we actually saw. I kind of think small ball only really existed when Macy Fraser had the ball and a bit of Annalie Longo, but she was injured for a lot of last season, so kind of only played about half the time. I don't really know that anyone else was doing a whole lot of small ball. I don't think you got small ball from Kate Taylor. I don't think you got small ball from Hope Breslin or the imports or anything like that, you know?
Would you like, how do we progress this style of football then? Is it just like they're playing helter skelter football? Or they're playing razzle, like that. This is the thing. Is it razzle dazzle? Is it helter skelter?
I think it's razzle dazzle when it works and it's helter skelter when it doesn't work, maybe. It's because I think it wasn't so bad against Canberra, but even then, like their goal was a little bit of this, and there were a couple of other chances, particularly in the first half. I think second half was quite a different performance, where they looked quite vulnerable at the back. And in the game against was Western United, wasn't it, in the first game? They were absolutely terrible at the back. And it was the same thing where it's like the vulnerabilities come from getting hit in transition because they're losing the ball in the midfield. Because you're not hitting those passes properly. You're getting caught out. And they're trying to do a few funky things with like their attacking setup is different to their defensive setup, which is fairly common these days. Chiefy's all over this kind of stuff. Like you defend in one formation, you attack in other formations, and transition, you're a different formation. You got to be fluid and flexible between all these kind of things. But they kicked off the first game of the season with a back three. And the back three had Mackenzie Barry on the left, Tiana Jaber on the right, and Rebecca Lake through the middle. So often when they had the ball, Lake is stepping up into midfield, and she's operating like as an extra midfielder, either alongside Maya McCutcheon or behind Maya McCutcheon, so McCutcheon can go a bit further forward. And they want their wing backs to get forward and be part of the attack. They have to, because that's where their width is coming from in these formations. And what you saw in the first game was they picked Mibe Tanaka, one of their imports, as a wing back who's more of a winger. In this game, they started Zoe McMeekin as the right wing back, who's more of a fullback. So one has an attacking sensibility, one has a defensive sensibility. Tanaka played really well in attack in that Western United game, but she got subbed off at halftime, probably because they were getting shredded behind her up the wing, like defensively. The way they were getting shredded was they were getting caught outnumbered. Either if not outnumbered, then it's 2-on-2. But just Lake and Barry and Jaber just Barry a little more so. I think Barry's long legs. She covers ground pretty well, and she's very good in the challenge, so she can make up for it. But Lake and Jaber in particular were getting caught out for pace as well. I don't think that's a very speedy back three. Zoe McMeekin helps that. If you've got her at wing back, she's an insane athlete, so she is going to get, speaking of long legs, she's going to get up and down. She can get back, she can track. That helps, but yeah, they were so ridiculously vulnerable in the first half. Of that first game, and so they switched it up at halftime, went to a back four. Maya McCutcheon actually dropped back into centre back, which I thought was a bit of a shame, because I thought she's a really good defensive midfielder. She wins the ball and she feeds it around. She does Alex Rufer type things for that team. I don't see her as a small ball type player, but I think you also don't want that in that part of you just want someone who can win the ball and get it to players like Longo, who then starts to link up, drifting around, finding little overloads, 1-2 passes. That's where the small ball stuff comes into effect. Short passes and movement off the ball, like pass and move, follow your pass, all this stuff. That led to so how are you going to adjust in the second game? Do you throw the whole plan that you've been working on all preseason out the window because it was terrible in the first half? Well, ideally not, but also if you're not confident it's going to be any better in the second game, then you kind of have to. So it was waiting to see the team list and what that might look like. But yeah, the adjustments they made was they went back to they kept the back three. Well, they returned to it because they abandoned it in the second half of the first game. Went to the back three, but swapped Lake and Barry. So Barry was the central defender and Lake was sort of the left-sided centre back, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know the purpose on that. Lake is better on the ball as a passer, but Barry is probably the superior kind of tackler, defensive arts type thing. Maybe they just wanted Barry in the middle because she can cover side for those transition moments a bit better, where she'll be available on either side, rather than if you're the left centre back and they're attacking down the right, you're kind of out, you're not really the one engaging there. Maybe that was the idea. I don't know, just trying to solidify the defense. And yeah, Zoe McMeekin comes in as a more defensive-minded, but not entirely defensive-minded, but just more so than having a winger playing as wing-back. So yeah, that was the thing. But they still conceded a goal that felt very similar to the ones they conceded last time. However, they only conceded one goal. It was just the one, and then they should frankly have scored a bunch, because I think they turned it on in the second half. There was some moments in the first half, but second half, they were all over them. And there's a couple of interesting players in there that I'm quite curious about how this looks for them this season. One is Olivia Ferguson, who we saw for the first time coming off the bench, English striker, 29 years old. So unlike most of the other team, because I think another reason the small ball stuff and maybe not having enough awareness, and well, again, like I said, it's not really small ball, it's just why they're losing ball in a lot of these areas. Like Mania Elliott is 19, Zoe McMeekin is 20. Who else was it? Alyssa Wynnum is 21. I should have it. Yeah, she's 21. Annalie Longo, by far the standout in those areas, is like 32 or something like that. 33 actually. So, putting one and one together there, you see the veteran players seem to know how to handle those moments, and the emerging players a little bit less game awareness in those spots, but also moments of like flashy brilliance. And you want Alyssa Wynnum on the ball as much as you can, especially in those areas outside the penalty area where she can pick a pass or she can beat a defender, get a shot away. I think she had some really nice attacking moments, but they need someone to tie things together and someone to finish the goals. And they don't have Mariana Speckmeyer this season, who's already scoring goals for Melbourne City and looking fantastic for them. So Olivia Ferguson's coming in as someone who does have a bit of responsibility of maybe being the one to be that player who can score 10 plus goals this season. And she hasn't really been that player at other clubs she's played at. So I'm a little like, there's a lot of as don't know if you can hear the dog going nuts in this thing. Sounds like the postman's arrived, so we'll fight through. I'm not sure. Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility on Ferguson to be someone who can score a bunch of goals, and I'm not sure if she's that type of player or not because we haven't seen enough of her. The other one is Grace Jale. And Grace Jale's this is the fourth year in the A-League. She played for the Phoenix, then she went to Canberra, then she went to Perth. Now she's back at the Phoenix. So she plays for a different team every year, and I'm not sure she's really clicked at any of them. So first, yeah, Wellington Phoenix, Jale scores 6 goals in 12 games, 848 minutes. Solid start, beginning to a professional career. That was pretty cool. She was the top scorer for the Knicks, and then she left to Canberra United, where she stepped things up a little bit. 3 goals, 7 assists. Playing a little bit more as a out-and-out winger and less of a goal scorer, but having pretty good, successful time of things there. Then she goes to Perth, where she scores 3 goals real early on in the season. I think it might have even been 3 goals in the first 3 games. And then doesn't score again or get an assist for the entire rest of the season. So she really did hit a bit of a plateau there. And I'm just a little bit confused about who Grace Jale is as a player, because for a long time there, I was really banging the drum on being like, I want to see her as a striker for the Football Ferns. I want to see her, she's playing a lot of right midfield stuff. I want to see her up fronts playing alongside Hannah Wilkinson, ideally, not instead of her, but like, let's have 2 big, tall, strong, aerial prowess kind of strikers, and then actually we could be a team that crosses the ball in the box. And then she started getting a few goes for the Phoenix playing as a striker, and I kind of changed my mind. I kind of got around to thinking, I'm not sure that she has that, like, that striker's instinct. And even watching her in this game, because at the same time, I'm also not sure if she's necessarily a winger, or like, should she actually be playing maybe as an attacking midfielder, or with like, what is the best role here? Well, the Phoenix have signed her at a time when they need to pick up the slack from the goals they've lost from Speckmeyer. Ferguson will do some of that. I think she did score quite a few goals when she was playing for Wolverhampton most recently. And earlier on in her career, she had 1 or 2 spells. I think there was a time with Sheffield United, she scored like 7 goals at a goal every second game or something in a season. Since then, less so. And there is a little bit of Hannah Wilkinson about her goal sort of ratios, where the lower levels she scored copiously and looked fantastic. Like, looked like someone who should be playing and being successful much higher up. But then she also played much higher up. She played for Celtic. She played earlier in her career. She played a bit in the WSL and didn't really score goals there at all. So I'm sure the A-League is, the A-League is not the WSL. She doesn't have to be at that level. I'm sure she'll contribute some decent stuff, but that's not enough. They're going to need some goals from Grace Jale as well. And Jale had some really nice moments in the second half against Canberra. I thought she had a couple of headers that were really good, especially because I remember her missing a sitter of a header at the Nations Cup, or Olympic qualifying it was, for the Football Ferns. The start of this year, must have been, or late last year. I can't really remember the timelines. And I'm thinking, like, for someone who's as tall and strong as she is, I don't actually think she's that good in the air. But then here she was that good in the air. So, so sometimes maybe you just have a bad day on those things. But yeah, there's an obvious, like, she's got athleticism and she's got ability with the ball. Like, often Kiwi footballers have come through with one of those things or the other. She's got both. There's a clear talent. There's a clear, like, someone's going to get the best out of this player, but it's just, at this point, I'm not sure what the solution is. So at the same time, I'm also confident Paul Temple doesn't sign someone unless he doesn't have, like, the an idea for how that's going to work. So this is all just a disjointed way of saying I'm interested in not just how Grace Jale plays or how productive she is, but also the role she's asked to do and how she seemed to fit in. So far, it's been as a second striker. So you got 2 strikers up there. Emma Main's been a bit more of the sort of poacher, and Jale's been a bit more of the dropping in a little bit more to midfield, try to link things up, flick things on. back post headers, this kind of stuff. And I tend to think from the evidence of her career so far, that's probably about her best role. So I'm looking forward to how this is going to look. And I assume at some point Emma Main probably drops to the bench as an alternate, which is a shame. I like Emma Main a lot as a player, but she'll still get plenty of opportunities. And I suspect Ferguson comes in as the other striker. So you got an interesting dynamic there because they will be relying on a lot of goals. I think you also saw times against Canberra where like chances fell to Wynnum and chances fell to Elliott and can't remember McMeekin. She a little bit more setting things up. McMeekin, I can't remember if she had any notable shots in particular, but like there's chances where it was like if someone else was there, maybe this might have been a goal. Like it's falling a bit too often to the facilitators rather than the finishers. And then I'm thinking, well, who are the finishers? Because I'm thinking Charlie maybe is more of a facilitator than a finisher herself, and Ferguson hasn't necessarily been that player before. So there's some things to figure out, and there will be players who need to show something that they haven't necessarily produced before in their career for the Wellington Phoenix women to get where they want to go. But those players have the ability to do that. And so it's annoying because they've lost 2 games in a row and now they've dug themselves into a hole to begin the season. Like they got to work their way out of this. But there was enough encouragement, particularly second half against Canberra, to think, well, they're still a pretty good team. Like it's got to click at some point. They got to figure this out. Things will get in alignment and they will hopefully be able to score some goals. But yeah, my main concern here is less about them being able to create chances and more about them being able to put those chances away. And that has been a pattern that has followed them in every season of the Wellington Phoenix and the A-League women so far.
Let's roll through some of the best Kiwi footballers around the world. Maybe not necessarily the best, just some who were in action front and centre, because we did have Liz Anton playing for Canberra United and someone else coming off the bench.
Yeah, Ruby Nathan played the second half as well.
Good stuff. Good to see them back in Aotearoa playing at the glorious Porirua Park.
And Anton was fantastic as well for defensively for the for Canberra United, and them withstanding that second half barrage from the Phoenix and being able to keep that clean sheet and get a victory for a team, which is annoying for a Phoenix fan, but at least promising for a Kiwi football fan, because Anton is one of several players who I've sort of got in the back of my head at the moment. It'll be a little while before we see the football ferns because they're not playing in the last window, so they won't be able to play again for a couple more months. By which time, Anton is one of the few players that I think are gonna, if they string together some good form there, pushing football fern squads from the outside sort of thing. Like Anton hasn't been in there for a little while. She does have about 20 odd caps, but she hasn't been picked for a few squads. She's someone who's at least going to be threatening to play her way back in. I think Hannah Blake is on that list, absolutely. Devon Jackson's had a good start to her A-League career, well, A-League season with Newcastle Jets. Kelly Brown has scored 2 fantastic goals from outside the box for Perth Glory as well. I mentioned Hannah Blake playing in England now, Maggie Jenkins playing in Turkey. Like there's a few of these players who, not to mention the Under-20 World Cup and some of those players who are starting to look towards senior football, a lot of them playing professionally at the moment. Had debuts for Chiara Baselli at Sampdoria and Millie Clegg for Racing Louisville. Millie Clegg already an established football fan, so that's no change. But there is a group of players who weren't part of the Olympic squad who have the opportunity to play their way into contention under the next coach and over the next few months with their club stuff. So that is something I'm tracking sort of low key on a football fan's perspective. But so shout out to Liz Anton on a very good game, even though it would have been all right if she'd let the Phoenix score an equalizer, so it wasn't a 0-2 start. You know, they would have got away with that, but whatever.
I did like Ruby Nathan coming off the bench. She's a more athletic footballer than I think a lot of the Kiwi footballers are on the women's side. Quite powerful, quite mobile, quite fast,
very
quite
tall
skillful
as well. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think that is a different body type and athletic profile to a lot of other women's footballers around Aotearoa, and I did like her impact. Like I felt like Canberra were defending a lot in that second half, but whenever the ball got to Ruby Nathan, who was playing wide right, she she had a few moments. She looked like a threatening wing player. Kelly Brown, as you said, she scored a nice goal for Perth Glory. And we've also got someone like Claudia Bunge. I did see a bit of her playing for Melbourne Victory, so that was cool. Indiah-Paige Riley scored her first goal in the WSL. So was this her first goal for Crystal Palace, or was it just her first goal in the WSL?
Yeah, first goal for Crystal Palace, full stop. And it came in the WSL. It was within 30 seconds of kickoff, just running forward from the right wing, and Crystal Palace just won. I think they were playing Everton. They ended up drawing 1-1, and Everton were just playing the ball out into their midfield, lost it. Player runs through. Riley spots an opportunity, gets into the box, taps it home. That's how you do it. She's had a couple of chances. Crystal Palace have been a team that, because they've just been promoted, they're one of those teams that spend a lot of time defending as well. So it was a bit like what you're saying with Ruby Nathan and Canberra. It's like you're not really getting goal opportunities, but you are doing some nice stuff, being an outlet on the counter attack and transitional moments. Like this goal was a transitional moment. So yeah, great from Indy Riley, who has started more games than she hasn't for Crystal Palace since joining them. So that's she's really rocketing up into one of our most prominent Kiwi footballers now.
I don't think Katie Kitching is far from that status as well. She's scored again for Sunderland. Is that in WSL? Is that in the lower tier?
This is, one division below.
So Katie Kitching, is she an attacking midfielder? Looks like she's an attacking midfielder, and she's scoring lots of goals. So that's another attacking threat that we need to watch out for with the Football Ferns. And if you haven't, you can check those goals out on our social media platforms as well. Who is your National League Spotlight of the Week? Let's just create that little segment, because there are a couple of youngsters on the women's side doing amazing stuff. You've got a clip here of Matthew Elliott. So who do you want to put the spotlight on from the weekend's National League football? Also got Brittany Cunningham-Lee in action with some goals. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I do like the way Matt Ellis has been playing. He is a winger for Western Springs. He's been just like real speedy, getting up and down and whipping the ball in the box, taking on defenders, scoring goals, setting goals up. He's been very good for them. Western Springs have been a fun team to watch because they also kind of run that span between helter, skelter and razzle, dazzle, where like they will build the ball up from the back. They'll pass the ball beautifully with 1-2 touch stuff through their midfield. One Gat Kick picking passes, Jackson Manuel picking passes. Emiliano Tade up front. Ellis's goal that he scored on the weekend was from Emiliano Tade doing they're making like a crisscross run. Like Tade's going towards the sideline, Ellis cuts inside, overlapping him, and Tade backheels it past the defender as a through ball into space. It was beautifully done. But also Western Springs have had moments where they've been just pressed to smithereens. But Napier did them that way in the first round. Kashmir Tech did it a few times in the first half, and then Western Springs adjusted to get a nice victory in that game. So Matthew Ellis has been pretty cool. It's one or two games I haven't quite got around to watching yet, but I think the highlight. Well, no, I don't think it should be him, though. I think he just had a nice highlight. He's been good over the course of the season, but this particular week, kind of want to throw the spotlight on the Wellington Phoenix, who had a spectacular win against Auckland City at Kiwatia Street, withstood the barrage at the end, but were 3-0 up at half-time. Away to Auckland City, inflicting consecutive defeats on Auckland City. Gabriel Sloan Rodriguez and Luke Brooks-Smith both played this game, and they were pretty awesome. The double-barreled brothers, the hyphen twins, I don't know, Brooks-Smith and Sloan Rodriguez, where the Knicks were playing that lovely transitional stuff, passing through midfield. These guys were dropping in from the wings. They were swerving on the ball. They were holding off markers, and this is Auckland City, who are extremely good at counter-pressing. When they lose the ball, they win it back very quickly. Like, that's how they operate. And these young Knicks players are like teenagers, are swiveling through this pressure and getting forward. And Sloan Rodriguez scored 2 brilliant goals. I thought also, though, their centre-backs were outstanding throughout the whole game, like Dylan Gardner and Jaden Smith. Jaden Smith, who's on a full-term scholarship contract like those other two, like the two wingers I mentioned. Gardner isn't, but I'm sure he will get one at some point because those two, like a trend of the Phoenix Academy for the last few years has been that they do, well, not a trend, a worry, like a sort of back of the head, is this maybe that kind of thing, is that maybe they do develop a lot of really good technical midfielders, a lot of passes, a lot of positional based stuff, maybe not enough focus on like the more rugged defensive dark arts. Like, are you just going to be a physical brute who can get up and win a lot of headers and like launch themselves in front of challengers? Finn Sermon came through at that time as a major exception to the rule. And now that they've had that example of Finn Sermon, Dylan Gardner, Jaden Smith feel like two guys who are very similar to Finn Sermon's kind of profile of tall centre backs, powerful in the air, also sneaky good with their feet. And Jaden Smith actually scored the first goal in that game as well, getting up with a header from a corner. So the the Phoenix youngsters doing pretty spectacular things. Let's not ignore that old mate Boons, Dublin Boons saved a penalty in this game as well off a Maya Bevins. So really outstanding stuff from them. From the women's perspective, I think I got to go Brittany Cunningham-Lee, who was part of that under-17 World Cup bronze medal team once upon a time, but has really just stuck around the domestic scene. She had sort of, in her late teen years, she was a pretty prominent player in the old version of the National League, when you got the Auckland and Northern type federation teams still before it went club-based, and so she was getting picked for those things. But more recently, I think she spent the season... She played National League last year with Ellerslie, but they were the bottom team in the National League, and it was probably quite frustrating to be a tall, physical, strong striker with pace who can turn defenders, who can run directly, who can play with back to goal or on the move, or like all these options she has as a forward. She's playing for a team that can't get her the ball often enough because they're losing 3-4-0 every week kind of thing. So she actually spent the season gone through the winter playing below the first division with, I think it was Franklin United, who did make a little bit of a run in the Cage Shepherd Cup. So there was some of that. But she's now a guest player with Eastern Suburbs who didn't score a goal in the first 3 weeks of the season. The next 4 weeks of the season, they've scored so many goals, they're now the highest scoring team in the league. So they went from 3 weeks not being able to score at all. Now they're the best attacking team. They've scored 21 goals in 4 games, I think it is. And Brittany Cunningham-Lee has scored or assisted 11 of those 21 goals and just generally looks unstoppable. Like there was a goal she scored where it was a tap in 6-yard box kind of thing. Wigger gets to the line. It was Zoe Benson who gets so many assists for them as well. Squares the ball, and Brittany Cunningham-Lee just steps in front of her marker, holds her off, and then does a little flick behind her standing foot with the heel to score it. It just felt like one of those basketball plays where it's just like, get the ball to the center down low, let them go to work, let them post up, they're going to score, you can't stop them. And then usually in the NBA, that player runs back to half court, like beating their chest, going, you can't guard me kind of thing. She felt like a you can't guard me kind of player in that moment. And frankly, for the last month, she's felt like that as well. So I have seen enough National League in my time to say that the players who dominate like that, they're good enough to play A-League. So Brittany Cunningham-Lee, who was part of a really prominent youth kind of wave from that under-17 squad, a lot of them are kicking on at this current moment at professional clubs around the world. She didn't really do that. She's kind of stuck around just domestically. But I'm seeing an A-League caliber player there, and there is an A-League club emerging probably next season in Auckland, when Auckland FC start their women's team, as they are supposed to be doing. Haven't heard anything on that for quite a while, but I'm assuming there's still the plan is to get going for the next season. I'd be chucking Brittany Cunningham-Lee on the list there in the same, maybe not quite the same breath as Chloe Knott and Saskia Vosper, but the next breath afterwards.